Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do every day, maybe with our loved ones over dinner, with coworkers at the water cooler, etc., when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or sort of more agreed upon fact-based reality. Although, because Dr. Ray and I, Dr. Kay, are social constructionists, we don't actually believe there's one true objective reality, but rather our own personal versions of it constructed in the context of relationships. But you get the idea. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality out here, off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test. Listen, y'all, we have a lengthy version of our disclaimer in the show description text, also in our old episodes, but we do ethically need to at least include part of it at the start of each episode. So here's our briefest version of the disclaimer. If you've heard it before, you can skip ahead 30 seconds, or for the old episodes, 2 minutes. So although we're licensed psychologists, psychotherapists, supervisors in the context of our professional roles, we are not acting as therapists in the context of this pod, neither for you nor for the reality castmates we discuss. We will give our opinions as our whole human selves, albeit supported by our psychological knowledge, and we will talk about diagnoses rather than assigning them, as we cannot ethically assign diagnoses without formal psych assessment. But both the opinions and diagnoses we discuss might easily be erroneous, as we don't personally know the folks in reality TV shows. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed. Cause it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We're going back to Traitors. We're going down to Traitor land.
Traitors. That was my attempt at Alan Cummings' accent. I'm so sorry, Alan Cummings, who's definitely listening.
Welcome to Traitors. I don't know.
Ooh,
Maybe.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
It's funny. I've heard it somewhere. I forget where, but someone else too, where it's easy to like dip into Jamaican and Irish. Like both of those seem to have a similar sort of like, lilt, I think it is. But that one I think at least was not Jamaican. But you never know. You never know what's going to come out.
Mm-hmm. It is tough out here. It is. Not tough to watch the Traitors, I have to say. It is an absolute delight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But speaking of it being tough out here first, how is your heart and mind today, dear Dr. Ray?
Oof. I just want to say something, which is the world's in shambles. This is awful in so many ways. I woke up like the day after the inauguration and I was like, are we in the 1950s with this two genders at conception thing, which, oh, by the way, we're all female at conception. So perhaps everyone's gay. Perhaps that's really what Trump is saying, which, haha.
Yeah. Freud thought that everyone was bisexual,
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's also erroneous because there are not two biological sexes. There's like all of the intersex and like chromosomal, gonadal, and what's the other one I'm missing? Hormonal differences that could be any variety of genders. It's not even 3. It's many, many varieties of gender, biological sex wise. So erroneous in many ways, in scientific ways, but also it's a social thing. It is not a political thing. You might co-opt it, but that's ridiculous because we can all believe whatever the fuck we want for gender because it's a social construction.
Mm-hmm. And trans people have always been around and they're always going to be around whether or not you sanction them to be or not.
Exactly.
But woof, does it feel bad out here. It just, so many policies that are scary right now. Dr. Kay and I were talking off mic also about like the NIH and the freezes that are occurring, which some people are saying is a normal part of government transition, but apparently they're taking out like any sort of grant that has any sort of DEI focus, which is, I think, profoundly sad to us as psychologists because we believe in science and we believe in research and
DEI,
I guess, and DEI. Fuck yeah. And perhaps Trump thinks that if he just gets rid of it, then it won't exist. I don't know. It seems like part of his anti-critical race theory, anti-science agenda that feels deeply scary to me, like really kind of controlling information in ways that feel unprecedented. So feeling really sad about all that. But how about you? I would love to hear your thoughts about the election and or anything else that you want to talk about if this is not what's on your mind and heart, or what you want to share on your mind and heart, rather.
No, absolutely. I think that there are some very serious, scary elements of what's going on right now that feels very much like, 1984, that kind of control and oversight. And I think if he could have that degree of oversight, he would love that. He'd welcome it, have that degree of absolute dictatorship control. I agree also about like the DEI stuff. That's so scary. Like I had heard also that they're defunding all of the government DEI positions as well. And so a lot of people with positions that, right, like this is not even a question to us, like to both of us, is like, of course we need folks who are focused on things like racial equity in the workplace, because historically all of our workplaces have been extremely racist. They still are extremely racist, but it's like at least there's somebody who's focused on helping that. And so if you take that out, we're back at where we were right before Black Lives Matter. And it's just a serious like regression, and was like worse than that, like destabilization of our hard work to try to move towards racial justice, and not even our hard work, the hard work of people of color to work towards racial justice. And so like we were already in a position where we needed more white allies in the space and more people with power speaking out, because in the wake of Black Lives Matter, a lot of white allies sort of receded. And so we were already in a position where we needed to be working harder towards racial justice than before. And now we're just that much more backwards and behind the ball. So that's terrifying. I would also say, the piece about the gender thing, because as much as I would say it's a social construction, so we can believe whatever we want, not really, right? Like he still could put things in place. I heard that he either did or will be putting it in place, that there are government structures that won't accept passports or identification that have X or non-binary as the gender. So people have to get brand new passports and IDs to be able to travel. What the fuck? Like you're denying an entire group of people their personhood, and then not making it safe for them to have identification that accurately identifies them. Like,
and for what? What?
Right. To like make you look good with your, constituents that are totally anti-human rights and anti-progress and anti-health.
Who are white nationalists, essentially.
Mm-hmm. The stratification, like the idea of difference being a form of distinguishing, is a stratification that is totally false. It's an arbitrary stratification that took place for absolutely no reason except that there were reduced resources. And so the white cis-hetero men in a room decided who should get to own property so that they could own more of it themselves. And that meant anybody who wasn't in the room. And that arbitrary stratification lives on today through things like racism, of deciding who's more worthy of owning land still, of having rights, of voting, of being in a relationship with whom, of living, whose lives are more worthy of being treated as worthy, for example. And already people of color, people who are marginalized, die earlier, have worse health outcomes as it is. And so like for this to be additional marginalization put in place is so damaging and traumatizing, and further reifying of these dark parts of our history where we arbitrarily chose things like that. That is wild. Eugenics, it's like this kind of eugenics, that's really what we're looking at here. And how dark that he doesn't even know that's what he's doing. Like he doesn't even understand really how dark that is and how much he really is Hitlerian. And then I would also say too, that the sort of eugenics piece of it, what was the other person I was going to say? We're going backwards in that way. I don't know, whatever. Oh no, I know what it is. The other thing is the immigration. So like actually celebrating difference is part of what is needed for our country right now to move towards additional progress and growth, because actually when you can see difference as something worth celebrating, not something worth fearing, we can all work towards shared goals and all benefit from it. And instead, the white supremacy and patriarchy of our country is so fearful of difference, thinking that that means it's going to somehow slow down their progress as the majority group. That's just, false. That's something that's taught to the people in power so that they can keep the power. But it's actually not going to help anybody, including you. So I think the more we can all work together, the better. And he's definitely standing right in the way of that. And that's scary to have a president doing that.
Absolutely. That was very well said.
Thank you so much. I join you in your fears, and just like despair. It's despairing, and I think still we're not in like the most targeted group, and yet we are in a targeted group, you know. And I think women in general also belong to the LGBTQ plus community. We are in two groups that really are being quite directly targeted. So it's disturbing. And I still hope to use the power I do have, privilege I do have, to try to help in other ways. And it's hard to know how, right? Like, we're sort of waiting to find out where the edges are and where the fringes are that we can sort of appear in and help and find other helpers and contribute. So it's a scary spot. We're in limbo. We aren't able to channel our passion towards an activism yet because we don't know where that will be, you know, effective.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to know at what level to engage and where, just like you said, where our power and privilege can help to make change.
Yeah, totally. Oh, on a announcement note of hard pivot towards Traitors, I have a couple announcements. One is a correction for me. This is from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because that's been chugging along in the sidelines because we haven't been covering it. Which is that I spoke a while ago about Portia who's Kyle's daughter. I thought Portia was her oldest daughter, and Farrah is her oldest daughter. So I was like, Portia, who's like in her 30s. I was like, Portia in her 30s or such. And she like just turned 16. And I was like, oh. Right.
I didn't even clock that. My apologies. Though I intellectually know that Portia's the youngest, but I totally, I was just with you, I think.
I traded. We were just in the flow. We were in a state of flow. Yeah. And I think Portia and Farrah both end with an so it's easy to swap them right out. And I think that something I just was going to mention about Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because we're not doing it, was I just wanted to note the irony of the fact that Kyle had said that she and Dorit only have a friendship on camera. Like, that's the only type of friendship they have. And yet her defense of why she was telling PK that she never shares his information is because she's talking about only off camera. Like, she only talks to him off camera, doesn't want to share any of his information on camera. It's like, wait a minute, but you said that your relationship was only on camera with this group. So I just thought that was some interesting irony. And then the piece that like I worry about with her is that I think her dedication to PK is based on people pleasing. She directly said he gets mad if you don't respond. And I think that was a very powerful line. I think she's worried about disappointing him, making him mad. And so like if she had cut off contact with him and was worried about disappointing him, what would have been the result? It turned out later in the episode she didn't believe Dorit that he ever gets angry, which is blasphemous to me because we've seen him get angry and he's quite tough customer to watch. Even I have a bit of a rant about him in one of our episodes, and I have a video of my rant coming out on I think like next week maybe. I have a new segment, by the way, you don't know this yet, but on Patreon I have a new segment called Dr. K's Rants, because sometimes I have these like little rants that are typically just audio, and so I add the video in and have some video clips from the show as well. So I have one about Dr. K that's coming out soon. And it's directly about this issue. It's like, he actually is quite scary. I've always felt that way. So it's kind of wild that you would think Kyle, having seen the previous seasons, I imagine she watches them. Maybe she doesn't, and that's the answer, but would know that there's that part of him. So I think there's a part of her that still does fear his disappointment, though. So that could say a lot about why she stays in contact with him.
That's so sad in a lot of ways.
The other correction is just a little bit more related, which is perfect. So it'll segue us right into our recap, which is that when you brought up Dylan Efron's lower third, I realized that what you saw was Down to Earth, because Down to Earth is the name of his show he was on. With Zac Efron. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I thought it was just a description of him.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Exactly.
That's so funny. Mm-hmm. I thought they were just doing the Bachelor thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I know. I love it. Because you were saying they might have said like Grounded. And so then I was thinking about it. When I thought about the name of his show with his brother, I was like, isn't the name of the show something with Earth in it? I was like, maybe that's what Dr. Ray's thinking about. And so I realized that probably is it. That's so funny. Because that would be so funny if they just did it like a pivot into that just for a second, like dipped a toe into the Bachelor style just for Dylan, which would be honestly great. I think they should do that for just like Gabby, somebody who is a Bachelor person. That would be so great. But not today, not this show. They're taking themselves seriously.
Yeah, they do take themselves. And I think it's the Alan Cumming of it all gives it a different sort of flavor. But I'm so here for it.
Me too. I loved his suit this episode. Oh my God.
Yes. It was so good. Love. And
then I think you have an announcement too, Dr. Ray.
Yes, I have been, as we are getting more and more into our reality TV podcasting lane, I've been listening to new podcasts because I just think, I don't know, I'm just kind of really into the reality TV podcast world right now. Hopefully, not just for narcissistic reasons. I think I'm just getting more into it and learning more and more. But I wanted to shout out a podcast that I've really been loving called the Bravo Replay Podcast.
Ooh.
And it's so fun. It's like a combination of Bravo News, which I'm always here for. I want to hear the latest about BravoCon and what's happening and who's, mad at who's dating, who broke up. Yes.
Good.
So that piece is really fun. And they also do trivia, which is just like a blast.
Amazing. Is it like, oh gosh, I love that. Because there's so many like little tidbits and things. And I feel like people really become like super fans. And so they're just like, they're hungry for that. I love that. What a good aspect of it.
Yeah. So Bravo Replay Podcast, just wanted to give a shout out to them because I think they're doing some really cool stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. Bravo Replay. I love it. It's one of the ones I have not heard of yet, so I'll definitely check it out. And I really love that we have infiltrated your brain and heart and brought you into the reality TV podcasting world to listen to some
here.
of
I'm here, hopefully to stay.
Yeah, exactly. Which does bring us to a note about our Patreon, which I'm going to say at the top and at the end, which I guess would be the bottom. I don't know. About our Patreon. So, yeah, really, we don't have any shout outs to give because we are not getting new members, which is totally fair. And you know what? Understandable. It takes time and we understand that. However, we do have like just super busy lives. And also we work for a nonprofit and we really don't make a whole lot of money in the job we have, but also it's a very time consuming job. And so to be able to do this job, which frankly is kind of like our joy, it doesn't mean we'd ever stop being psychologists or teaching even, but just that we could sort of justify using more of our hours on this than, using as many hours as it actually frankly takes, because the Patreon alone is actually quite a bit of work. And so we kind of are in a bit of an impasse here where I think we've set a goal that if we could have 20 new members on Patreon by this time in 2 weeks. So if we could have 20 new members on Patreon that are paid members, not necessarily tier 3, any tier, but 20 new members by Monday, the 10th of February, then we would feel like we could stay afloat. That would just give us a sense that something's moving and shaking and worth it, right? Like ultimately, is this worth it? That's the question we're asking ourselves. And that's tough because I love doing this. I love working with Dr. Ray. We love being able to just like imagine we're having a conversation with you, even if we don't know you directly. And it would just be really wonderful to keep that conversation going and even bring it into more of a like known place if you want to join Patreon even as a free member and sort of chat with us in the chat. That said, the other goal we have is one related to what's going on with the world and what a gosh darn depressing place it is. So the other goal we have is that if we could get to 50 new members by a month from now, okay, so that's from January 27th to, that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, by the 24th of February. If by the 24th of February we could have 50 new members, we'll start giving $10 a month to the ACLU. So if you contribute to that and help us work towards that goal, you'll also be contributing to the ACLU. How lovely is that? And again, even if you are just a tier 1 member, that contributes to us counting as a 50 member location. So that's sort of where we're at with that. I think it's depressing in some ways. It's also a reality check, reality test, if you will. That's sort of like, do we have this capacity, And it's a passion. And I would like to say that I have the time and space to have a passion that's just a passion. But this is something that actually costs money. It costs us money, not just an opportunity cost, which is the costlier part, to be honest. But it also is cost in terms of just having materials, right? And like paying for the streaming sites to be able to do the ones that we wouldn't necessarily otherwise watch or whatever it might be. There are costs. So we also love and adore you. We love our community, whatever size it is, whoever's there, whoever's listening. We do know there are quite a few listeners. So we appreciate you and want to stick it out. So stick it out with us if you would. And we got a review once that said that they like our sometimes pleasantly aggressive banter, which I just really enjoy. And it's what inspired me to do the Dr. Kay's Rants segments, mental health videos on our Patreon. And so come pleasantly, aggressively banter with us as this world continues to get dark and a little bit depressing in the next 4 years, and we can rant about it together, and that would be a joy. So that's my current rant.
Love it. Love, love, love. And yes, I totally agree with Dr. K. We love doing this. And, you know, we both have part-time private practice and practices, and the hours that we spend doing this are hours that we could be spending making, frankly, more money. And
Any
so, yeah, any money. And yes, like working for a nonprofit as opposed to being private practice full-time, like we are not, you know, where we could be in terms of our finances. And so we would be grateful for any sort of financial help to help keep us afloat. So yeah,
Exactly.
Thank you in advance. We really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I have a new mic for anyone who's on the video episodes. And although it looks pretty and fancy, I will tell you it was like a few dollars on Temu. So if that gives you a sense of our finances, we go for what we can. In other words, we're not looking for money to fund like expensive materials. Like honestly, we'll take the bottom level right on deck. We currently have a team that is not paid at all. Dr. Ray's partner is the one who does our audio, and what a sound extraordinaire Connor is. He's a sound connoisseur that takes care of our sound for free. So actually, the first thing on our checklist is to pay him, because our audio would be woefully depressing without it. I don't know if you heard, by the way, that Khloe, I think Kardashian, started a podcast, and all her first episode came out. All of the comments were like, the audio is horrific. Like you can't hear her and you can hear him really well. I don't know who it's with. I didn't listen to it, but all of the feedback was like, this sound sucks. We love you, but we hate the sound. And I was like, what a gift that we had Connor right up top, help us out right away and make sure that we were on track. So that is a person we need to pay. He also doesn't make enough money to do this for free. So
yes.
Help us help him and keep this afloat. We love being able to share. Yeah, ourselves are on deck as well, frankly. Honestly, we're last on deck. We're the last ones on deck, but we're there.
We're on that deck. We are not the bosun or whatnot if we're doing a below deck med reference. We're not bosun.
Yeah.
But we are some deckhands who are also in charge of the boat who need to be paid.
Yes, exactly. And yet we're also kind of co-captains, such that if the ship went down, we'd go down with it. So help us
together.
Out. Help us stay afloat. Exactly. Holding hands, crying, maybe wearing top hats.
And then I love that for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's dark. Took a dark turn.
Listen, this is with the state of the world. That's where my head goes. And then the other thing I was going to say about it too, though, is that we are staying afloat. Connor, like, we're late on the checklist, also making sure we pay us, making sure we pay him. What was the other thing I was going to say? There's something about something, but I forget. Oh yeah. So a big goal of ours, right? Like the whole point of this podcast, and frankly, this is related to the other episode that's either coming out the week after this or the week before it. The whole point of this podcast is there are times where having a clinical psychologist step in or sort of like give some feedback, whether or not they're stepping in, giving some feedback or chiming in is the word I'd like. Chiming in about a content area is so important, because right now the reaction happening for Brynn Whitfield on Real Houses of New York is frankly extremely re-traumatizing for her. While she absolutely should be held accountable for some things, she also does not deserve the reaction she's getting. And in fact, it's doing real damage. So to me, that's something where a clinical psychologist needs to get in there and just sort of add some additional context. It's not to give her pass. It's not to say anything about Uba, who's also very much deserving of understanding her context. But instead of having sides, instead of saying like it's Uba versus Brynn, let's just understand the context of both. Both can be true. What Brynn did is very harmful to Uba, and what Uba said to Brynn was hurtful. And there are things in terms of Brynn's history of sexual violence that deeply, deeply affect her in terms of this being the reaction to being disclosed, to a disclosing, both to her peers and to the public. So having that conversation is just so key. So Dr. Ray and I are looking forward to talking about it together. For now, there's a free emergency pod mental health checkup that is out on the podcast right now. You can go check out for my rants and rambles about it. And that's just a little bit of the more clinical piece of it, whereas Dr. Ray and I are really looking forward to talking about the episode recap and giving our thoughts as we go along the way. So these are areas that we, have been educated in and that cost money to be researched in as well. So there's something that we really hope to be able to keep sharing in these moments. So thank you for helping us help, I hope, both the reality TV stars to like look at a little bit of giving themselves a little more compassion, and ideally also the public to do so too.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you in advance.
Thank you. And let's go. Let's do this Traitors thing.
Woo!
We're in it, and we're going, and we're moving, and we're
Traitors.
shaking. Yes.
Mhm.
So we said me first, yes?
Yes.
Fabulous. So we follow up on the Traitors in the turret. Rob promises Carolyn and Danielle he won't be coming for them, unless they come for him, of course. Danielle pretends to be good with Rob. Carolyn's a little bit more forward about the fact she's not happy with him. She says to us that she thinks Rob did it out of ego in terms of taking down Bob the traitor, because Bob the drag queen, because Bob had so many people following him. And I think that Rob tells us he can tell the energy's off. They end up talking about Rob and Sam, who's the ex of Britney Spears, and Gabby as options. Danielle says, we have to get Rob banished, but it just has to be the right time. When you take out a mafia guy, you got to do it when they least expect it. You got to be this silent assassin. That's how you deal with Boston Rob. Close scene. Next scene. Survivor's breakfast. Dylan is jazzed about working with Boston Rob to get rid of Bob the drag queen. He's just like a child in a candy store, cute as a button, really happy. So I have a segment here. My segment for this one is your psyche is showing. So something that I felt like we could see a little bit about how someone's mental health or way of being in the world is. We can learn that from the scene. And I'm just very aware that Dylan's love for Boston Rob is both adorable and he's literally emulating him. Like, I don't know if you noticed he had his backwards hat on. He was wearing his hat backwards. My husband noticed it and I was like, you're so right. Oh my gosh. I was like, you are spot on. So he's wearing his hat backwards and it just shows he's a super fan, but also whether he's consciously wearing the hat backwards or not, because he might not be, he's sort of emulating his hero, if you will. And there's also this idea of what's called power merging or merging with someone's power. And it's like self-psychology. It's a piece of what he's doing to be able to feel a little bit of Rob's power as well, just by like feeling related to him in some way. And so I love that. And I think it's also reminds me of when you're talking to somebody that you want to like you want the other person to like you, you'll imitate them quite to the point of mirroring them. Like literally they put their hand up to their face, you put your hand up to your face. And it's very subconscious. It just happens naturally. So that reminded me of that as well. And this idea of mirroring, which is the other piece that goes along with power merging. So what a cool sort of like showing his psyche in terms of those two concepts, and also what a nice way to bring in some concepts that we can all relate to too. So thank you to Dylan.
Kind of hilarious also.
I know. So
I didn't notice the backwards hat thing. Yeah. That's really funny.
Yeah. And honestly, it could turn out he did that a lot, but I don't think so. I think that was the first time. So I loved that.
I don't remember him doing that before either. Huh.
I don't associate it with him. It's so funny. So the post-traitor banishment energy is high. Everyone's feeling great. Rob got his way again in this case where Robin is evicted. He was the one who said Robin first. Everyone was sort of like, no. Carolyn was like, no. We flash back to the scene where he made that decision and Danielle ends up giving in. She sort of says like, okay, you're probably right, Rob. And it just shows that Danielle's working hard to make it look like she's, in good standing with Rob. Carolyn, again, has to give up her idea. She's feeling frustrated, understandably. Loving Alan coming soon. I have something to say
about the breakfast.
Yes.
In particular, it's related to Bob H. and his comment to Carolyn that was like, oh my gosh, you're so sweaty. Like I think he said like you're a hot mess or something.
Rude.
And I'm just like, can you stop commenting on women's appearances? Like that is what you did. So I had that as my socio-political moment.
Great.
Like that is what you did on The Biggest Loser for a very long time. And it was very harmful. And I've really liked Bob H. on this season. And I think that was a little bit of like mean girl energy. And then I saw him trying to get in with the Bambis who seem like the cool girl groups. I don't know if the things were related, but I just feel so sensitive to the way Carolyn gets treated on this show. And I thought that was a moment of like, who gives a shit if she's sweating? Like, what business is it of yours if she's sweating? She might be nervous. It might be hot. Who gives a fuck? None of your business.
Yep, exactly. Why worth commenting on it anyway?
No one commented on Tom Sandoval's massive fucking pit stains and like he was so sweaty. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
People were very quick to comment on Carolyn's and I didn't like that. I didn't think that was cool.
Not at all. It was really gross. And a couple people did too. They were sort of like, you look out of sorts or something. And it's like patriarchy and sexism. And also I would note, even ageism, really, you know. Oh, ableism is what I was going to say, though, with Carolyn as well. Ugh, gross. Yeah. No, thank you, Bob. Sit down. Thank you much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. We'd love that. Then poor Dolo again has a friend thrown on the ground. I noticed she didn't go pick up Robin's picture, though, this time, which was funny. Alan threw down Robin's picture on the ground. There's conversations at the table. Ivar shares the theory that Wes shared with him. Carolyn overhears this. So the idea was, he said, Wes told me, how do you know if someone's a traitor if you're a traitor yourself? So Carolyn says to us, the way Rob went for Bob DQ, drag queen, was put a big target on his back. So that's sort of her understanding of that. Now we're in the post-breakfast scheming arena where we see Nikki and Gabby, two parts of the Bambis, saying to Bob H., you can join the Bambis, after he was saying to Brittany that Nikki is still in his crosshairs. I thought that was ironic. So he had said to Brittany from Big Brother, Nikki's still in my crosshairs. And the next thing you know, he's like cozying up to Nikki and Gabby, who invite him into the Bambis. Brittany, by the way, agrees with Bob that Nikki seems to be acting differently. Ivar tells Rob, this is funny because we see Ivar bring up the rumor at breakfast, but then he goes and just tells Rob that Wes came down hard on you, he says, and shares the above question about how do you know someone's a traitor for sure. Rob goes to Wes immediately and grabs him and says, what's up here? I heard this. What's going on?
And I had a segment here. I think Wes is playing. I don't like him very much, but I think he's playing a very good game. He clearly knows Rob's a traitor. He kind of backpedaled in a way that he denied it, but didn't totally deny it, which I think was smart. Like, it was enough plausible deniability that I think he'll be able to kind of work his way out of it. But I think he handled Rob really well, which if Rob feels threatened, he will then come for you. And that did not happen. So I think that he's playing a very good game and seems to wield a lot of power in the house. So,
yeah. Wes, as some background in the challenge, is famous for working with the rookies. Like, every year there's new people who have never played on it before. Yeah, so he's like really good at working with new people, using his like skill in a knowledge translation way to sort of be like, here's what you should know about this. And then people start to trust him. I will say he's not a veteran at this game, so he doesn't have the same amount of power. And so it's been amazing to watch what he's like when he's a newbie. Honestly, it's been exciting for me. Like, he has to suck up to Rob a little bit. I've never even seen that part of him. He doesn't do that ever on the challenge, because even right away on the challenge when he was a kid, basically a teenager kind of, he was cocky right away. So seeing him defer to Rob is awesome. I love it. And you're right, he's dead on about him being a traitor. So, he says to Rob, well, I didn't say your name. And that's true. He did admit that he implied it, which is, no. We know that he implied Rob's name. He did tell Rob, I didn't say your name. We know he just implied Rob's name, but he does admit to Rob that he started the rumor and said that it was not about you, though. He says that I did start the rumor that maybe there's he says that's to us too, isn't it? He denies it to Rob. Okay, here's where it is. Let me tell you this. He also tells us he started the rumor that Rob could know because he's a traitor and the traitors know who it is, but he denies that to Rob as well. I didn't start the rumor. There is a rumor going around. I don't know it, though. What he does say to Rob is, I was complimenting you / saying I would never do that myself, but I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Yeah, he did a very good job. So hats off to you, Wes. And then he goes, Rob is more than likely a traitor to the camera. I'm just nervous if he puts his name out there because he has that traitory power. He could give Wes the axe. So he's being very smart about how he's using that information. And he doesn't seem to be the only one who thinks that. There seems his, Derek. What's his name? Yeah,
Derek
really
does,
thinks that.
Big.
So his fellow latecomers to the game all think it's true. So I think Rob is kind of a ticking clock, honestly.
Me too.
And Rob then goes to Carolyn, I've got you no matter what. I don't trust anyone else. She does not buy it, to her credit. And maybe I actually kind of believe Rob. I kind of believe that Rob would back her.
He needs her. Yeah.
Because she's
and
really
they're survivor
fucking
friends.
good. Yeah, exactly.
She's doing great.
Yeah. And then Carolyn and Danielle talk, and they're kind of feeling each other out. They're not totally saying how they feel. Carolyn's like, it's scary. We're a team. And then Rob is continuously saying, I've got you no matter what. Like, is he that way with you? And we find out that he's not that way with Carolyn.
With Danielle. with Danielle.
Oh, sorry, Danielle.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah. And Danielle wants to get rid of Carolyn, which seems like the wrong. She is so messy in this game. It's kind of unreal. But I'm like, why would you get rid of Carolyn? She is so undetected. Even though she's been right about everyone she's wanted to get out, she has not tried to make, other folks get people out. Yeah.
And she hasn't made Danielle feel bad for her bad decisions, even though Carolyn's been spot on the whole time and could be like, so this is what I meant when I said da-da-da. And doesn't do that.
No, it's like really misplaced in my opinion, and kind of ticks me off. But so then we go to the challenge. It's riddles. And there's like these riddles, and then you have to pick the urn and break it. And if it's all sparkly, then you get to keep playing and get to try to fight for a shield. If you get it wrong, you're in the out pew. And Tom Sandoval in his confessional, he gave a very like Vanderpump Rules confessional. It felt like, where they say something sort of clever, but also basic that's not that deep. It was like he was talking about being really good at riddles. He watched a lot of Harry Potter. He's like Tom Riddle. So calling himself a villain.
Voldemort directly, which was like, he's like, I'm very like Voldemort energy. Well, he didn't say Voldemort, but he's like, I'm very Tom Riddle energy today. I was like, / always, you are a villain.
Yes. Villain's gonna vil.
I wanted to just say that when he was talking about Harry Potter, just out of nowhere, my honey was just like, he's such an asshole. I was like, you know what? You're fucking right. He is such an asshole. It's just so funny.
He's such a douche.
He is. Yep. He's just such an asshole.
Ugh. So then Bob goes first, but he wasn't actually listening to the riddle, and then promptly goes out. And then Alan goes, don't talk to Bob. He's a loser. And I thought that was shady and fun.
It was both those things. I also did.
And Wes very confidently, in my opinion, coming in a little hot, but he was also kind of right. Like, don't go if you don't know, kind of thing. Because probably
you're wasting it for someone else. Yeah, totally.
So that was good advice. And I don't think Wes actually went. So that was something. I don't know what, but it was something.
I think he said something about it too, right? Like, or that was Derek, or it was both in different ways. Like one or both of them said, I want one, but I don't want to stand out as needing one. So like, I might not go for it. And Derek did end up going for one. So I don't think it was Derek, but he sort of said like, I'm going to lay low on this one, I think was what Wes said about it. I could go for it, but I don't want to stand out as needing it.
Yeah. And there it went. But Derek did end up going. He goes for the second riddle, gets it right. He's very smart. It's kind of unsurprising. He does choose his own portrait. He's like hopeful it doesn't come across as selfish. But honestly, as we see later, I think it's a good move because if you don't pick yourself, you look like a fucking traitor.
Right. Well, that's the thing that I thought was so like him saying, I hope it's not selfish. Like then Tom Sandoval does it and he's like, and I won't blame anyone else for doing it. It's like at that point, y'all have to know you have to do it. Like you have to pick yourself. And frankly, you would have to pick yourself because this is one of the things about Traitors is like, even though it's a mix of people from different shows, it is moving towards being more of a gaming show. And any gaming show that is a real gaming show, people are picking themselves for this. No questions asked.
Of course.
So yeah, that's just silly.
Very silly. So yeah, then Sandoval goes and gets it right. And then Danielle protects a housewife instead of choosing herself. And I just said she's a very obvious pick, but she's playing such a sloppy game. It is unreal. It is like every decision that she could make, she makes a bad one. Like she looked so guilty. And I liked how Dolores, I don't know, Dolores, I've never watched her season, but she was just like weirded out by it. And she was like, I don't like this, whatever this is. It was kind of funny. Like she could smell a rat, if you will.
Yeah. Dolo was like, don't do it on my behalf. She was like, I don't accept it. She said, I don't accept that. I don't accept that. Like, don't do it for me. I don't need it. Like, you're making me look bad too now. Like, at first she was like, wow, that's really nice. I don't know what I did to deserve that, but like, thanks. And then later she was like, okay, just enough of this because it is too much. And you're putting the heat on me now too. Yeah. Right. Dolo is like, she's one of my favorites from New Jersey. She's also one of the people that like is in the middle of the fight of between two ridges, because she is so like very like fact based or like logical, where she's just like, if I'm not fighting with you, I'm not fighting with you. You know, it's like sort of and just like really chill. She didn't used to be, but now she's really chill. She is a little bit like self judgmental about like her looks and so that's, I feel bad for her about that, but she's just like a joy. And then I would also mention that I will also go now to say that Danielle remains my resident sloppy player as well. She just has a residency in that slot for me. It just really, no one can come close to just how woefully sloppy she is.
And then throwing Carolyn under the bus after the challenge made me so mad. It just all the things. She thinks this is going to make her look like a faithful. She took Derek off the wall, a fellow Big Brother player. So she's not like, she's not forming allies where she very well could. Saying, I begged you for a shield and you didn't give it to me. It was just like misplaced and confusing. Tom is a maverick. That was weird. And then Chrishell went for Tom. No one's surprised by that. And then Tom got it wrong and is eliminated. Danielle gets another one right and puts Derek back on the wall. And it's just like, you are doing so much right now. Just like, do less, please.
Yeah. And even says, you owe me one. I was like, he owes you? You just like undid what you did to him. Yeah, he does not owe you anything. If anything, you owed him from what you did first, so that's why you're doing this.
Right. She's doing too much.
The most.
And Dolores didn't want it. She said, no, Danielle, don't. She did not want whatever this was. And then she said, don't you feel like you're going to get murdered too? And like, she should. It's so funny. I think it was, and I think people are suspicious of her. Like, she is clearly a traitor. I think people are starting to see that.
And that's when Danielle like realizes what's happening. This is like a little line. There's a page change in the middle of that there. So, so like this is Danielle finally like sort of like it's like snaps into reality. I realized it too earlier. I was like, she doesn't even understand it, does she? She doesn't get that this makes her look guilty at all. She literally said she thinks it'll make her look like a faithful, which I was like, opposite, but okay. Like, she should take a cue from Tom Sandoval saying, I think I won't be, I won't judge anybody else who does the same. That should say something to you. There's a reason. So she didn't learn from the maverick Tom, which I don't agree with him being a maverick at all. But she didn't learn from him. She thinks he is one. No, sir. So she starts to realize what's going on and how her strategy was ill-advised. And then she starts crying. And that's when Dolo was like, I don't accept that. I don't accept it. And Danielle's like, I'm not crying. So I think here's the problem. She could have fixed this easily by waiting and then going for one. And even if she didn't get it, being like, shit, that was my strategy. I was going to do myself at the end so that my portrait would stay up. That's how she should have done it. But as soon as she started crying, it was obvious that the whole thing fell apart and that there was no plan here and that she was wildly underprepared and over sketchy. So Sierra goes for the last riddle, gets it, leaves Dolo up there, says Dolores is my girl. Dolo ends up saying, like, it's so strange how nice things can happen in this game of backstabbing and betrayal. And that's sweet that they're close. I will say, Danielle says in the Jeeps, this isn't in the notes, but Danielle says in the Jeeps that this whole thing is that she thinks there's somebody who is the traitor and that they don't think she's like worth killing, so she thinks she's safe right now. Like, that was her whole thing. She's like, I think I'm safe just because I know who the traitor is and they don't care about me. So you think there's one traitor? Like, I don't think anyone else thinks that. So like, doesn't really make sense at all. It's a terrible strategy and no one really seems to buy it.
Yeah.
So she's got to go. Go. Just must. So Dylan says to Danielle regarding Carolyn, I don't agree with you. I hear what you're saying, but I just don't agree, because Danielle's trying to get him to buy in about Carolyn. Danielle says to Brittany, I spend so much time with Carolyn. I think she could be one of the traitors. And Brittany was like, she's just not capable. Ableism.
Yes.
But she ends up deciding this could have
sorry,
legs.
I had a quick segment here, just like your psyche is showing about Brittany. Yeah. Like, the ableism is so strong here. And I think that she needs to do some work about what she thinks capable is, how she defines a person as capable or not capable. It was pretty cruel, a little bit callous. And I don't know her very well. I don't think she's not a callous person. In that moment, that was like, whoa. It was just
Yeah.
like really a thing to say.
Yeah. She can be pretty cutthroat for sure.
Okay.
I agree too. And I had this as my sociopolitical one with the
Mhm.
ableism. But there were a few instances of ableism. So really they could have collectively been the sociopolitical as well. Definitely
Totally.
Psyche showing that she has some growth to do in that area.
Mhm.
She ends up saying this could have legs though. Rochelle says to Boss and Rob, I'm so scared about my theory. She pulls him aside. In the car, Nikki, when there was a face she gave in the van when you told her that Bob had floated voting for her, which wasn't even true, by the way. And then her reaction was alarming to Rochelle. This is heartbreaking to watch. And she goes, please, I'm really close with her. Don't tell her. She said, Nikki's one of my best friends in the house, but I think Nikki's a traitor. Will you please not sell me out? But I think it's too early. And he said, I got your back 100%. He said, are you going to bring it up tonight? And she said, no. So, I don't know what happened to that plan, but it went out the window. So that's tough. This is one where the game tactic strategy that would have made it better. Oh, no. This is a game tactic or strategy using a psychological concept. So this is with Rob. So the fact that he let her come to him and then he's using his like solidarity or sort of like saying like letting her be, he's playing sub. So he's like playing submission with her where he's like letting her decide and drive as a way of showing that he has her back. And then that develops the relationship with each other. Now, also, because he can show her that he wouldn't have brought it up without her telling him or like without her going first, it shows her that he is actually supporting her. So I think that awareness of when to like pivot into the like submissive position, he has a hard time with that. He's definitely more dominant, can't help himself in general. But he had a moment there where he was able to just like let her be the one to drive the car. And I thought that was well done.
It felt, this sounds weird, but I'm going to say it. It felt a little like gendered or sexualized to me. And I don't know why I felt that way. Maybe it's that they're similar ages. I don't know. And they seemed like two people who could be attracted to each other. It just felt a bit like, I'm a damsel in distress coming to you with this information. I can't put my finger on it. And maybe it's internalized sexism. I don't know. But something about it had a vibe to me that I can't put my finger on. And I am very willing to be proven wrong or told why I am being sexist in this moment.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're being sexist. I think I can see that with Chriselle. I don't think he is. Like, he's married to Amber. Like, they're just like, he's like so dead happy with her. And like, he is just not flirty. Like, I've seen him flirty and he's not anymore since he's been married. And so I think he's not. I think she is. And so it's potentially interesting still that he didn't like come save her either. He's like, I have your back, you know, but he's saying like, what do you want to do? Are you going to do da-da-da-da? So I actually think that's a non-gendered response, which is good. I liked how he responded to it, but I agree. I think she was a little bit of the like, ooh, like, you know.
Help me. Yes. Which is probably like a defensive strategy for her when she feels unsure or under attack or whatever it may be.
Totally. And she needed help, you know. I think there's also, it says a lot about like society and that like, for example, there's that study that showed that women who give speeches, even after they come off stage from giving speeches, tend to find a man to tell them they did a good job and that we kind of can't help that, right? Like that's something that's been ingrained in us. There's that study also that showed gender role wise that women and men rated men as more competent. That has changed a little bit recently, but it's still pretty well established. So, you know, there's a way in which that sort of like need for male support is still pretty well ingrained in women, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So then we see Derek saying, Rob is on my radar. He's different in his demeanor than he was. Going into the round table, I'm on to Sierra. So he basically says, Rob's on my radar. I'm not going for him, though. And going to the round table, I'm on to Sierra. Nikki and Gabby are talking really in front of Carolyn and Tom Sandoval, but they're talking to each other. And Nikki's sort of saying, everyone's coming after me. Gabby says, well, they should be equally suspecting Sierra. And that's where Carolyn says, well, they are. And then also Gabby was like, well, listen, unless there's more evidence than last time, it's not going to stick because it didn't stick last time. And Nikki says to her, I know I'm faithful. So I'm just frustrated because I'm like, the traitors are, she says that to us, actually. She says to the camera, I know I'm a faithful. So I'm just frustrated because I'm like, the traitors are playing you. Yeah. And Gabby says to her, or maybe it was to her, whatever, either way. Gabby says to her, I'll have your back, obviously. And Nikki says, well, thank you. And that is foreshadowing for the most painful thing I've seen so far on Traitors. Potentially. Just horrific and heartbreaking. just horrifically heartbreaking.
Shitty round table to see these women who loved each other kind of go against each other. And ultimately, it's a game. And so I agree. I hope that their friendships will continue outside of this.
She was pretty heartbroken.
Yeah, she was upset.
I don't blame her.
Totally.
I think actually that does kind of bring up since we're talking about that in this moment. Well, it comes up at the round table as well. But this is the more like the bigger sociopolitical one for me, which is also a producer or psychologist one, which is about Nikki, because Nikki's very even keeled, and people bring that up as a part of her strat, like that must mean she's a traitor. And I just think that, like, first of all, that's sociopolitical because it's like people have different CNS strategies, and some people, including in the face of trauma, downregulate or hypoactivate and look very still or unfazed or unflappable. And so to some people that looks like guilt. And I just was really shocked by this because we went through this conversation last season, and I just sort of was like, why aren't we building in some sort of, I don't know, just because it turns into a type of ableism. That is a type of ableism.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's sociopolitical. Yeah. So that's why it's sociopolitical, because it's saying that she must be guilty because she has the CNS functioning. And so that is problematic. And the reason I would say producers, if they were psychologists, is I think they might build in some version of, like, even if it's like prepping people behind the stage or behind the scenes or something, it would help with this Britney thing too. It's sort of like, remember that people have different strategies and ways of being in the world that are unrelated to being guilty. And you have to be thoughtful when you're giving your testimonials not to come after people for just who they are. And so I think that should honestly be some of the diversity training, because it's turning into some like really nasty things I don't like.
And I'm thinking about either last season or 2 seasons ago with Peppermint. Like, I think when people are looking to suss out who's telling the truth, their implicit biases come out. And no one accuses a man of being too even-keeled if they are...
Oh, they did, though. They did with Dan.
Oh, that's right. I guess I mean more like Boston Rob. But but
he's
maybe
very still, isn't he?
Yeah, he just kind of, maybe it depends on the person.
Yeah, because he has this sort of like mafia guy version of it or something.
Where Dan was kind of annoying, and therefore maybe people were willing to be like, you're not saying anything. But I think Nikki, there's something about if people don't have a very eloquent case for why they're not a traitor, that makes people think they're more guilty. But you're absolutely right. She might just be a little hypo and a little shut downy when people are like, you are this. And she's just like, I'm not.
Yeah. I thought she was so eloquent to the camera where she was like, this is a bummer. Like, I wish people understood that just who I am is different from who they are. Like, I might be still, and that doesn't mean it's anything wrong with me. I just was like, oh God, it's heartbreaking. Her closing testimonial, if we were doing awards, and when we do awards, this will get my testimonial one, is her testimonial after at the end. We'll get there.
Yes, it was
that is the
lovely. So at the round table, Ivar starts off saying, okay, Nikki, Sierra, and Rob are kind of the names that I've been hearing. He's really coming in hot with that. Saying that Rob, the theory of he went after Bob pretty strongly, and Wes's idea that only a traitor would know 100% about a traitor. And saying, I feel like you need to explain why you're not a traitor. Rob defends himself. I am 100% a faithful. I felt conviction towards Bob because watching him and how he acted, when you feel threatened, you project back to the person who accuses you. Unlike Tony, I wanted to wait until I had 100% conviction, is his idea. Nikki, I do think Rob's a faithful, and I think you are such a great player and doesn't think he would take out one of his own kind. So she's saying, you're too good for the move that you actually made, which was kind of a dumb one, which is...
Exactly.
Yeah. Sierra,
take out one of his own.
Yeah, Sierra also defends herself. I have these feelings about Sierra for like the fact that she's getting like traitor vibes. I don't think she's getting enough screen time. I don't think I fully understand the reason why she is being accused as being a traitor, other than she's on the quieter side. And again, people project that onto her. And even Alan said some weird like shit about how she's not eloquent, or at least that's how I read it.
Yeah, because of swearing or whatever. Yeah. And you know, as a part of it, I think it was swearing, but I think it also had an implicit bias in it. Yeah, I think there is a lot of implicit bias happening that we don't understand. They should
Yeah.
be giving her more screen time for us to get. I agree.
Yeah, so that's my.
I think they're also. I mean, the other thing, by the way, sorry, just to interrupt really
No,
quickly.
no.
The other thing is just that they think it could be someone in the coffins, and the fact that she came out hard and fast against the traitors, and everyone's like, only someone who thinks they're safe would do that. So that was used as a reason that is actually quite valid.
Yeah, it is fair. But yeah, if producers were psychologists, I wish they'd give her more screen time. And frankly, Nikki too. I feel like they're being treated in this game as kind of irrelevant in a way that's kind of annoying. Like they don't get a lot of screen time. And yet they were the two that were pretty much up for banishment. Or not banishment, death. What do they call it?
Murder.
Murder.
No, banishment. No, you're right. Because murder is what the traitors do. So you're right. They get banished.
Gotcha. Yes. The murder versus the banishing. It's all a little confusing. But yeah, I wish Sierra got more screen time.
I like that.
Yeah. So Nikki said, I think you're a traitor, and I don't think that's weird. Sierra said, it's wild how insanely even keel you are. There's no fluctuation in your voice or anything. Have you ever laughed with your gut? Have you had any emotion other than calm? Which was a little I think, again, getting to the central nervous system stuff. But also, I think Sierra can be a little even keel when she feels shut down, too. So maybe it's some of that, when it's something in yourself, you see it in someone else sort of thing.
Yeah, projection.
Yeah, projection. Exactly.
Totally.
So that was interesting. Then Chrishell, I think actually did. I know she was feeling sad about this, but I think she did put the nail in someone's coffin.
I literally was like, no. I was like, stop talking. Sit down. I literally was like yelling at the TV, sit down, Chrishell, sit down, even though she's sitting. I didn't want it. Don't do it. Yeah. Don't do that to your friend. Even if it's true, like, because Nikki could have gone home anyway. You're saying she put the nail in the coffin, so we're just responding to that. Yep. And the thing I gave last week was to Gabby, how I was like, I love how Gabby would vote to keep Nikki anyway because it's her friend or whatever. She said, like, even if she's a traitor, I'm not ready for her to go yet. So it's sort of like, why aren't we in that place? Like, I want the babies to keep each other here no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, strategically, she'll keep you around, much like Phaedra kept other housewives around. So I didn't think it was very good strategy.
No.
But she said she can pick up on energies. And after Bob left, she felt like Nikki's energy shifted. I can't help but wonder if you're a traitor. I can only imagine how hard it has been to lie to people closest to you. I'm so sorry. And Brittany's shaking her head because she's like, don't do it. Don't make my mistake. Nikki said, I'm a faithful. I haven't changed since day one. Bob H. plays devil's advocate against Rob, saying he'd go right for another traitor to establish his dominance, which is true. Wouldn't it be badass to be like, I'm taking one out? Rob, I agree with you, but that's not what happened. Yes, it is.
It is what happened. I also think, by the way, that was sloppy. Like, I think he shouldn't have said that. I think he should have said, I wouldn't think that's a badass move because it would ultimately hurt my game. I don't do things for the showiness. I would only do that like at the end, maybe for show, because otherwise the showiness doesn't really matter. Like, I think he needed to defend it in a different way, because saying I would, but I disagree with you because I didn't, I don't think that helped him.
Because it's like, I agree with you that would be a badass move was a little self-serving to his ego.
It still makes it look like he did do it then. Like, he knows that it would be good, so why wouldn't he have done it then?
Right. Next, onto your page.
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't scroll down. So the votes are basically everyone for Nikki, including Gabby, which just broke my heart. Like, we knew that Chrishell would, but I didn't think Gabby would. And I guess Gabby sort of chose Chrishell over Nikki, but she even said to Nikki, I have your back no matter what, in this very episode here. It just was a bit of a heartbreak for me. Yeah, I just really was feeling sad. Oh, yeah, by the way, I also had said to myself in the notes that I think Rob should have said, I don't think that, because if I were a traitor, I would be grateful that Rob was a shield for me because he was like a more obvious traitor. I think that's really where he should have gone with that. But anyway, notes for another time. So then Sierra votes for, Nikki voted for Sierra. She's the only one who did. And then Dylan voted for Gabby, just like, okay. And Dylan said, it's so frustrating to hear people put Nikki and Sierra, whom I believe are faithfuls. And then Gabby was like, I'm so dead. Like, why me? Who's like one of the Bambies. It's just, yeah. So what Nikki said, which was really powerful, was what I leave you all with, we are all born different and our personalities are different and we do things differently. So don't judge people or have high expectations, which I felt like sadly was sort of like internalized ableism because having high expectations means what she was doing wasn't good enough, which is not true. It's just different expectations. So don't have like particular expectations is what she might say, or what you think they should be doing, which is how she corrected it a little bit. In her testimonial, she said, I'm just super upset right now. It was really hard not to have the people I have left in this game not stick up for me, which was like, arrow to the heart.
Yeah. It was hard.
And sure enough, right after the round table, so painful. Right after the round table, just the most ridiculous thing. Chriselle is right away. First thing she says is, I feel so badly. Now I feel like shit. And Sandoval goes, hey, Chriselle, I know you don't like me, but I really respect the fact that you spoke up. And she goes, yeah, but and she goes, yeah, but now I feel like shit. And he goes, but I respect that, Kay. Like, he just wanted to make sure, like, okay, yeah, you feel like shit, but just so you know, like, I respect what you did. Like, as if that's more important than her. It's like,
I'm a man.
The blindness. I see you have a segment. Yeah, exactly. I see you have a segment here.
Oh, yeah. It was just like, fuck
you just
off.
saying,
yeah,
shut the fuck up.
Off. Yeah. It's just like unreal.
Dude.
That he also that he thinks he's such a savvy gamer. It's like that layer too, that she would be like, oh, thank you so like, it's like if he just went to her and said like, hey, I know you don't like me very much. And I know that was probably hard, but I respect that you like stood on what you thought. He could have ended it there and that would have been fine and different. But
and if she said, I know, but now I feel like shit, he might have been like, oh, I totally get that. That sucks. Done. Don't be like, but I respect that. You respect that she feels like shit. Like, yeah exactly. Ugh. Gross.
Silly.
I totally agree.
Very silly.
And I also have a segment here about Nikki, by the way, which actually was a little bit earlier. But for my psychological concept that would have made a given tactic or strategy easier or better, it is an article by Saul Kassan, who's a major proponent of the Innocence Project, who writes a lot about confessions, and in particular, false confessions, which is such a like counterintuitive concept. Like, why would someone confess to something they didn't do? And there are a lot of reasons people do. And so there's an article called On the Psychology of Confessions. Does innocence put innocence at risk? So like innocence, ENCE, put innocence, ENTS, at risk.
Oh, wow.
And it is the most powerful like true crime article I've read maybe ever. Like, it changed my whole view on everything about innocence in the legal system. And his whole point is, being innocent actually puts you at higher risk because you trust that everything will work out.
Right.
It doesn't. You trust that being innocent will mean that you will be found innocent. It doesn't. You don't know like how to lie because you're innocent, and you don't know, you don't know how to play the system. You don't know what your rights are. You don't know, like, so there's all these things that actually puts people in a worse position if they are innocent than if they were not, which is wild. Oh, and related to that, people who give false confessions obviously are innocent. So like, you're only going to be at risk for being a false confessor if you're innocent of the crime. And so those folks all right there, right, for example, just want to be done. And so when a cop who is interrogating them is like, just give me the information and then you'll get out of here. They're lying, and they're allowed to. And they're saying like, you'll get out of here as soon as you tell me. And they're allowed to lie, and people don't know that. So innocent people think they would never tell me that unless that's true. So they think if I just admit it, I can go home even if I didn't do it. And that's wrong. And so they end up in jail. And so it's like, that is such a huge problem. And because they're innocent, they don't know what cops can lie. And then the other thing too is that they are just like battered. Like, they're kept in there for 24 hours at a time, right? Like, denied water, denied basic rights. And so they're just like, let me go home, because they're also feeling literally like out of sorts.
Right.
So I just thought about that with Nikki, where like the fact she's innocent almost put her at bigger risk because she didn't realize how important it was to have a spiel.
Right. Absolutely.
And to really come out hard against someone else too, as part of that.
Ugh. Sucks.
Yes. So I think knowing that would have made that better.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then, am I done? No. So then Chriselle says to Gabby right away, they come out of there. Chriselle says to Gabby, I'm sorry. I feel like you're going to be so mad at me. I'm so sorry. And Gabby says, I'm not mad at you, and hugs her.
Which was really sweet. And then Bob H. said to Sierra, Gabby, and Dolo, I feel like I'm the one who... Oh, I'm sorry. Chriselle said to Bob H., Sierra, Gabby, and Dolo, I feel like I'm the one who did it. I really thought it was Nikki. And She probably is TBH. And she said, I feel like such a bitch. And then Chrishell kind of switched, probably maybe subconsciously to bring a group in, and said, I really feel that it's so clear we're being targeted. She said this to Sierra, Gabby, Chrishell, and Dolores. And it's like, yes, you are right about that. And that was a great like psychological realization. What would have made it better is if she would have realized that before this episode, but she didn't, or before this move. Because then she would still have her Bambi and another ally. And it's like the same move as the Housewives, where like people tried to make them look like the guilty ones last season. And this season, they're just getting rid of them because I think they know they're dangerous. And I think something else is happening with the more femmy reality TV non-competition show women. So it's like the same thing, but different, I think, in what is happening.
Totally.
Yeah. So that happened. And then Dylan tells Carolyn that Danielle is going for her. Carolyn, I think, handled it fine. And
to his face.
Yeah.
And then she was like eating spaghetti. I was like, what the fuck?
Right.
Loved it.
And Danielle, she realized that she was thinking about Rob, like throwing her name out, but actually Danielle is the one trying to create chaos. She doesn't trust either one of them. She's mad. And so she said, let's head into the turret and decide who we want to murder each other. I'm not going to pretend we're working together because we're not. That's over and we're not. So then we get a preview for next week. And Carolyn says to her fellow traitors, there's no one I want to murder other than you two right now. Looks like there's a Danielle Carolyn standoff at the round table, but that could be a misdirect. We don't know.
Exactly. At first I was like, oh, good. Like, we're definitely going to see them both go for each other. But then I was like, honestly, it was one sentence. I could see them sort of being like, okay, well, whatever, make it look like that. But like they made this week look like they were going to definitely get Rob out.
Yep. And that did not happen.
Didn't happen. Nope. Didn't even really try.
Yeah.
I will say I love that Dylan brought Carolyn in, and I really like how Dylan likes Carolyn, like, trust her. I'm always wrong. I really like that.
It's sweet.
I was just going to mention that the other sociopolitical thing, and there was a third, this was the third one that was an honorary mention. Honorary mention is the Chrishell saying, I feel like such a bitch, because it's just such a bummer. Like the bitch narrative and this idea of these like controlling images that society puts on us. It's just like stereotypes that limit our capacity to dream into like who we can be in the world. It's just such a bummer, and it makes sense that she feels that way. But damn society.
I know. Fucking A society. Yeah, no one, Rob was able to move on when Tony called him something or another.
He was pretty pissed, but Tony called him a sellout.
Yeah.
He was bummed. He was actually bummed. I think he was both hurt and then pissed, like, about what it did to his game. But you're right. That's not like a strictly male image. Like, that's not like a marginalized group image, whereas bitch is like something we use to put down women who are already in the down one position.
Totally. Oh, poor Michelle.
I know, I feel so badly for her. What an emotional ending. What a great ending to an episode. What a great episode. Come check us out. I do want to just say, as promised, that I would like to shout out Daisy Faulkner, because we said we would shout out the number one first ever member of our Patreon every time that we talk about this. So thanks, Days. Thanks, dear Days. And we hope that there will be more members. There is one more, by the way, and that person, because they were a free member, just automatically got the free tier upgrade. So their name was Jerry something. So thank you, Jerry. Anyway, that shows something, right? Like, you could become a free member and you just automatically get a $20 a month upgrade for a whole year. I mean, that's pretty good. That's like worth a lot of money. So you might as well jump in there and get that free upgrade, and it'll count towards our 20 or 50, which is the last thing I'll just mention about Patreon, that we want to have 20 members ideally by this time in 2 weeks, so that we can keep this afloat. And if not, we really have to reconsider what we're doing, at least limit what we're doing, and maybe call it. And then the other thing is, within a month from now, or exactly 1 month from now, we would like to have 50 members in order to be able to give $10 a month to ACLU, which we will do and commit to. So that is where we're at with that. That's Patreon, which is patreon.com/realitytest. You can also search in the search bar the @ sign and then reality test, one word. The other pieces are at reality test pod is also our Facebook page name. And if you do @ sign reality test pod for YouTube, that's how you find our channel. We have our Instagram, which is at Dr. K Pods and at Dr. Ray Pods, respectively, for us, the two of us, which is not really respectively, but you know what I mean. And then we have the TikTok, which is at Dr.realitv, which is REALITV. And we have really quickly, one more thing before you take your part, which is we also have an email. Email us, give us feedback, tell us what's going on. What do you think? Why no Patreon? Tell us more. What should we do? That's at realitycheckpodding, PODDING, at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. And you should definitely download us. It helps us to get more ads, which allows us to do this thing that we love so much.
Yeah, totally. That would be a delight. We've actually had an uptick in downloads, so that is something we can say. Thank you all who are downloading. We appreciate you very much indeed.
Very, very much.
What a joy. What a delight. We'll have some more Traitors content for you upcoming. You'll notice we are putting video episode previews on YouTube right now. So if you want to see a preview of what our video episodes look like, head on over to YouTube and then come on over to Patreon to see the whole one. And we'd love to see you during this portion right here. You'll notice I put graphics on the screen during this portion. You'll only know that if you become a member. You have to be a second tier member to see the video episodes. So come on down. And we'll see you next session.
Bye.